Not too long ago, I watched a movie with my daughter. It's one of her favorite movies, is Grown Ups. And it's where Adam Sandler and David Spade, Chris Rock, Rob Schneider, Kevin James all return to the city of their youth as middle-aged men, so they can all attend a funeral of their eighth grade, basketball coach. And I know a lot of people thought that that's really kind of a, sappy storyline, and it was just designed as a reason to get all those guys together in the same place. But anybody who's ever been on a team, who's been part of a team, knows that that isn't really that sappy at all. That players do that. Coaches have a huge impact on players, and that impact is felt long after the final buzzer sounds. I've played on a lot of teams growing up. I played on grade school teams, middle school teams, went to 2 high schools, played in some all-star teams, played in college. And I'd really be hard-pressed to remember any specific details as to what we ran offensively, defensively, out-of-bounds plays, special situations, anything like that. But I can remember each and every one of my coaches in complete, vivid detail. I remember their personalities. I remember their humor. I remember how they made me feel. I remember if they helped me get better. I remember if they cared about me as a person or if they were just interested in me as a player. And even right now talking about them, I have to smile thinking about a couple of them. But I got to admit, there's a couple of them, just the memory of them, makes me cringe as well. But right or wrong, good or bad, positive or negative, I remember each and every one of them. Look, as coaches, especially those of you who coach younger kids, you're going to have some players that are going to be, able to go on and play in their high school teams. You'll have even fewer that might make it and be able to play in college. And let's face it, probably none of you are going to have, players that are going to eventually play, professionally. But that doesn't make any difference. Those players are going to remember you and the impact that you have on their life for the rest of their lives, whether that is good or bad. In the 2008 Beijing Olympics, there was a study done where all the athletes in the Olympic Village were surveyed, and they were trying to determine what was the number one factor in determining someone who won a gold medal or someone who achieved a personal best. And the results might surprise you. They surprised me. The number one deciding factor wasn't equipment, it wasn't training techniques, it wasn't workout facilities, it wasn't nutrition, it wasn't any of the resources that we might think it was. The number one deciding factor on whether or not an athlete reached their very best, reached their potential, was a strong, quality relationship with their coach. That was it, the coach. The coach was the deciding factor on whether an athlete was successful or not. And, as it turns out that, not only do athletes win sometimes because of their coaches, but athletes a lot of times win, for their coaches as well. How do you develop those relationships? They're going to have an impact on athletes, for the rest of their life. Well, it's simple, really. Not easy, but simple. It basically comes down to 2 things. One, you have to help them get better. Not everybody does that. A lot of coaches use players as kind of chess pieces, as pawns, and don't really take the time and effort to help them get better. And believe me, athletes know if you're putting in that effort. Athletes know if you have their best interest at heart, and they will respect and love you forever if you help them get better. The second thing is you have to be there for them. you have to have their backs. You have to support them unconditionally, without judging them and without any ulterior motives. You got to love and respect them and appreciate them for who they are, regardless of how many points they score or rebounds they get or deflections or any of those things. And athletes can see through that, and they want people who appreciate them for who they are and not for what they can do. And if you do those two things, your athletes are going to remember you forever. Unfortunately, if you don't do those two things, your athletes are going to remember you forever as well, just not as favorably. Look, as coaches, yeah, we have a great opportunity to impact and influence the lives of others. And, like it or not, it's really not a responsibility that we can ignore. And it certainly isn't an opportunity that we should pass up.